One of your greatest gifts is your imagination. Hi there, my name's Dan.
And I'm Suzie. Together we are Doozy. And welcome to the Just Live podcast with Dan and Suzie Potter. This is a story I'm telling myself, part 3. We invite you to slow down enough to hear your own inner narrative or story, question the script, and choose a truer, freer story.
Take a deep breath. I want you to notice, name, and rewrite the story you're telling yourself.
Part 3 is all about the power of imagination. Now, imagination is one of your hot topics.
One of my favorite
Get
subjects.
Dan on imagination and it will be difficult for us to stop him. So unpack the power of imagination story version.
Well, imagination is a real gift from God. Everything you do comes from imagination. I fell in love because I imagined what it would be like
So glad you
to
did.
spend my life with her. Before I asked her to marry me, it was rehearsed many times in my imagination. When you study God's word, you use imagination. You can't pray without imagination. You can't please God, I think, without imagination, because it's the imagination that connects us. It is a really good thing, but sometimes the power of imagination becomes what cripples us in our storytelling to ourselves.
So imagination is very powerful, and what we rehearse internally shapes what we live externally. So the question is, what shape are you in? Dun, 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 dun. I'm in the process of working out and trying to get healthy. Fit and fabulous is one of my body physical goals. And so I am constantly imagining, what will my energy be like? What will my life be like? How will my body feel? How strong will I be when I'm able to pick up my grandkids or pick up that big, all of that flour in that big container and be able to move things around? I'm imagining, and that gives me power to tell my story. Yeah, I am fit and fabulous.
I have to say, I've never imagined picking up a thing of flour.
Just like
do it.
daily tasks.
But I did imagine
tasks.
what this suit would look like with Susie's dress. This is my new suit.
Doesn't he look
It's part
smashing?
of the imagination. So we need to be thinking about what actually are we rehearsing? What is the imagination? If you're really interested in imagination, we have a whole nother course called Courageous Imagination. It's in Doozy courses. If you
Or
want
just
information,
reach out to us and contact us and we can help you with that.
But here's the definition I have of imagination. Imagination is the ability to see with the mind what you can't see with your eyes. And in storytelling, the story we're telling ourselves, oftentimes we see it, but we actually didn't see it. Our mind actually projects it from our imagination.
Imagination is not neutral. It's either going towards the positive space or going towards the negative space. It's going to allow you to heal or it's going to harm you. It's going to take you into a spiraling up, like joy and peace and happiness space. Or it can spiral you down into sadness or deepness or potentially depression, depending on what you're imagining. It's never neutral.
So we need to really question our story, because what we do is in our storytelling in our brain, we mentally rehearse our future.
Yeah.
We mentally rehearse our conflicts.
How they're going to
and
go.
the outcomes.
Yep.
I don't know how many times I've had really strong talks with somebody and they weren't even there.
Sometimes with me, I'm like, wait, we didn't talk about that. Oh, we didn't?
My imagination did. And so we need to really question the story. Is it just coming from imagination?
So what we dwell on or what we soak in or the story that we continually repeat becomes what we expect. We talked in the last session about it becomes a filter or a lens over which we see future stories. And it often becomes like these echoing thoughts, these echoing stories. It becomes what we create, where we go in the process of things.
So there are some verses that really stand out to me in this area because, again, this is not just a new thought. This is a God thought from years ago because he created us with an imagination and the ability to tell a better story.
Yeah, so setting your mind, Colossians 3:2 says, set your mind on things above where Christ is seated in the right hand of God. We can set our mind in imagination, guard our heart, so our emotions, guard what we're feeling, Proverbs 4:23. You can guard your heart also in your imagination. It plays a role in making that a reality for you. As a man thinks in his heart, so he is, Proverbs 23:7 says. So the thinking, the heart, the mind, the imagination is very powerful in our story.
I really geek out on some of the things in the Bible. I find it really, really interesting how many times things actually come up and what did it actually mean in the Greek or the Hebrew. It's louder in my brain than my code is, that's for sure.
Oh, how can that be?
Well, it is very true.
Not louder.
The word mind actually shows up in its various forms over 600 times, 615 times in some translations. And the word heart over 1,000 times.
Does this mean it's
You see,
important?
This is really, really important. And the Bible talks about it over and over again because our imagination affects our mind and it affects our heart.
Let's look at a few scientific topics, story thinking. So there's the mental rehearsal research, especially in sports psychology, that the brain responds to imagined scenarios. I loved it. The Olympics was on just recently, and one of the commentators was saying this person who was downhill skiing the slopes had mentally rehearsed every turn and the timing of it over and over again. I know you do that also with magic, don't you? You rehearse it in your mind before any performance multiple times. You imagine the scenario, and that is a very powerful way to imagine it to allow yourself to see that story.
There's also something called the default mode network. And what it is it's about ruminating or future casting. Your brain, your story, that is where you ruminate what the future will be like.
Repeat over and
you
over
go
again.
over and over again towards what will happen, even though it's not happened yet.
Here's another concept. Attention shapes emotion and decision making. So what you pay attention to, you're going to see more often. We form our identity through these internalized life stories. We see the reticular activating system is going to trigger you to see it with that filter, with that as a focal point. And so what you imagine and what you ruminate on or repeat over and over definitely even makes a difference to how you're going to see events and how you're going to have experiences that become a part of your story.
Here's a biblical story anchor, Romans 12:2. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Basically what this is saying is examine and clarify what you're thinking, because your thinking will destroy you, but if you transform your thinking, there is life to the full.
Philippians 4:8 tells you what to think about, what to imagine. And in science, the neural pathways are lit up as light spaces when there are things in this verse from Philippians 4:8. Whatever is true, noble, right, pure, lovely, admirable, excellent, praiseworthy. These are the things you should think about. These are the things you should imagine, because that's going to take you to these positive spaces in your storytelling.
So I ask you this question. Where does your imagination go when you are under stress? Where does it go?
How does imagined futures affect your present connection? If you think something is going to happen into the future, how is that affecting where you are in the here and now? Now is our theme of this 2026 at the time of this podcast recording. And we're thinking about now because we're both very future oriented. Where is it going to go? What's going to happen? Where do we want to be? And how do we have goal setting habits and rhythms to get there? But how does an imagined future affect what you're currently doing here and now?
And I love the word redeem, because you actually don't have to just live in a poor view of your future. You can redeem it. And imagination can redeem instead of bring a fear. And the question you have to ask myself is, how can imagination, my imagine, be redeemed, be made new, become whole, instead of leading me towards fear?
Here's some personal questions to journal about, think about, or have a conversation with each other about. What story do I rehearse when I feel unsafe? Remember, our body is wired for safety. So when you feel unsafe and you know when that feeling is, what is the story you're telling yourself? Examine that, because we have imagined scenarios that are bringing those out.
So I remember when I was little, I would go to my grandparents' house. I would look through slides. I look through photos that my grandpa took. Those images always had a story attached.
That's right.
It's the same thing in our brain, and we need to understand what images or expectations shape how I show up.
Here's another question. What would it look like to intentionally set my mind this week? And what is it you want to set your mind on? Imagine. What do you want to project towards and have these internal thoughts about, so you can have a different story?
Now, I'm a little weird in this, but my imagination is so active when I am sleeping as well. So before I go to sleep at night, normally I set my mind to what I want to be imagining that night. And when I wake up in the morning, oftentimes things I've been trying to think about or write about, they're there.
They come clear.
Because I have programmed my brain.
Set
tonight
my mind.
I want to dream or imagine about these.
And you often wake up in the morning, grab your journal, and you just start writing because it's a download.
Sometimes at 3 o'clock in the morning.
So you don't lose it, right? The imagination is very powerful. So here's a stillness practice we'd like to invite you into to practice one time or multiple times this week.
So here it is. Hold one significant memory or thought before God. Something that's happened this week. Maybe a conversation you had. Just sort of take that. The conversation with Suzie in the woods. I'm just gonna hold that out a little bit. I'm gonna ruminate on that a little bit. I'm gonna think about that for a bit. And then I'm gonna ask this question. Lord, how does this moment connect to living fully alive? Is there something from this moment that's gonna move me towards more life? Mm-hmm. Or if holding this, will it pull me away from life?
Yeah, that's a great practice. Do it in the stillness of your own space. So that's the end of this section, the story I'm telling myself, part number 3, where we've invited you to slow down enough to hear your own narrative, your own story, question the script, and choose a freer, truer story.
And I want to thank you for taking the time to notice, to name, to rename the story you're telling yourself.
So may you live fully alive as you love your life, your world, and your God.
My name is Dan.
I'm Suzie. Together we are Doozy.
Live fully.
And love fully. Thanks so much for joining us. Part 4 coming soon of The Story I'm Telling Myself.